sector investment to flow into our energy sectors, in order to create the impact that we're looking for. This is where iTrust comes in, and other credit enhancement instruments like the partial risk guarantees that the African Development Bank provides, and other risk instruments such as the guarantees that Africa Guarantee Fund provides. We need many more of these de-risking instruments in order to get our sectors to work. The problem with the energy sectors in Africa, particularly the power sector, is that we have many weak utilities. So the ability to actually pay is not there in some cases, and some of these utilities need better governance. But in some cases, it's difficult for our communities to pay the electricity connection costs. In some cases, the utilities themselves are losing significant proportions of the amount of the electricity that they're selling. So alongside the sector reforms and unbundling, we also have to put in place financial instruments. The financial instruments in and of themselves do not solve the problem. The financial instruments are there, but we also have to go to the fundamentals. Many of our countries are borrowing long-term in hard currency, but the revenues are in local currency. So if your currency is going to devalue, 100% over 10 years, and there are some African countries that have seen that level of devaluation, and you're borrowing in dollars over 10, 15 years, it doesn't make sense because you cannot always pass on that devaluation to the end customers. And we see that across the continent, increasing tariffs is an issue. That's why the bank is also building regional interconnections, because you find that it's often the poorest countries that pay the highest for their electricity. Those landlocked countries in Africa, G5 Sahel, Burkina, Niger, those countries often are having to rely on expensive diesel for their electricity. But some of them are now able to buy electricity from neighboring countries like Cote d'Ivoire. Here you have Ethiopia has the massive Renaissance Dam project, and we built the Ethiopia Kenya interconnections. We want regional trade, regional electricity trade, and we're doing that also in Southern Africa with the South Africa Power Pool. You see, Mozambique is ideally positioned. Huge hydro resources. They also have, gas. But the hydro resources, they're selling clean energy to South Africa and to other countries. So we need that. And as countries in Europe start to introduce carbon border adjustment taxes, we find that if we don't ramp up on the clean energy procurement, we're going to be at a disadvantage. There was a study that came out recently that South Africa could lose up to 12% of its GDP because of the carbon border adjustment mechanism that is being introduced in Europe, which says that if you have carbon in your production chain for certain industries, you're going to pay an additional tax. So all those BMWs that are being exported from South Africa to Europe will have to face an extra charge. That's why we need to ramp up clean energy, because Africa, we don't want to have a double whammy. We didn't cause the global warming, and then we don't want to suffer disproportionately as a result of the impact. The world is moving on. So we really welcome instruments that will help us de-risk our sector. And iTrust is offering a very innovative approach. We at the African Development Bank are very open and willing to work with them because we can't have enough of these instruments to support the work that we're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Wale, for highlighting some of the great progress that's being made in some countries in the energy transition, and also for the openness and partnership that we really look forward to continuing to build. And now I'm also very pleased and honored to have with us a member of the World Bank Group, MIGA, which is the multilateral insurance guarantee agency, which provides de-risking tools as well and is also a good partner to iTrust. And I would like to invite Nkem Onwukamambu, sorry for that, to showcase what MIGA is doing in the continent and how projects can make use of this kind of de-risking tool. Thank you, Nkem.
Hello, and thank you, good morning, and very pleased for the invitation to speak about MIGA and our products, and hopefully I have a few slides I'm going to go through once they come through. But a brief introduction about myself. So I'm MIGA's regional head for Africa, based right here in Nairobi, Kenya, and really our role is to see how we can use de-risking tools to enable investments. And we do work across all sectors and to facilitate investments into our emerging markets. So just quickly, if the clicker works. It's gone all the way to the back. And I'm not going to spend too much time on these slides. What am I doing wrong? Okay, it's working. But quickly, let me just explain. MIGA, as Liz mentioned, we're part of the World Bank Group. We are private sector focused. So really our job is to enable and facilitate foreign direct investments across multiple sectors. Let me skip through. So this is our product line. We provide various type of de-risking tools, from what we call political risk insurance to credit enhancement, more straightforward credit enhancement type products that can facilitate borrowing by public sector. But really it's the political risk insurance products that we have utilized within the energy sector to facilitate and enable investments happening. In particular, you will see that we cover a range, or we offer a range of risks, including to foreign investors coming in to enable these projects. And really, the risks that they're most concerned about, ability to repatriate foreign currency from local currency, any risks that basically would impede that, expropriation risk, war and civil disturbance, which is political violence, but really importantly in the sector, we've used our breach of contract cover, which looks at these PPA type arrangements. So these long-term contractual arrangements, typically with utilities in the IPP space, on the back of those instruments, they raise financing. And really it is, as Wale mentioned, dependent on the balance sheets of these utilities to be able to meet the ongoing tariff payments. And we can basically backstop those type of risks. So this is a particular risk and risk cover that we've used, and I have a few examples that we will showcase. As I mentioned, in particular, we work across all sectors, but in particular, the energy and extractive has right now accounted for about 40% of our portfolio in Africa, as you see, and typically it's utilizing these particular breach of contract as well as the other political risks. Our exposure in Africa is now over 10 billion. We've seen a steady increase, so there have been a lot of disruptions to the African continent, which impacts, unfortunately, risk perception. So we've been as busy as ever trying to enable these investments, and this is shown through our steady increase in volume and business. We're only 9 months into our fiscal year end, and we're already poised to essentially have a record year, at least across the agency. On to the interesting part. Sorry. Some examples of projects that we've done in the energy and extractives. The focus has been on IPPs, and we've got a big portfolio of IPPs, and more recently, over the past decade, it has been increasingly tilting towards renewable energy for all the reasons that we know. So even though climate change is real and we're suffering the impacts on the continent, even though we contributed very little, if we don't enable investments that basically go towards addressing or more sustainable in terms of renewable energy, we will be left behind, both in terms of international financing that is tilting towards those kind of renewable and energy transition type projects. But we have seen an evolution also towards more distributed renewable energy solutions to really increase that access. We heard already 600 million of the population in Africa without any energy access. And we know at least half of that will probably gain energy access through distributed renewable energy solutions. But going towards the traditional IPPs, we've supported a number of projects in many countries. This one in particular, I wanted to highlight. This is a solar project, one of the first IPPs in Malawi, where we as MEGA came in to support this sponsor. And it's unique in that they were investing equity and they intend to bring in refinancing afterwards. Now, as you may be aware, what's interesting and what's not shown in this slide is actually that it also benefits from a liquidity facility. And this allowed this project to go forward. The facility in this case, the liquidity facility in this case, was actually provided by ATIDI, formerly ATI. So again, this allowed, along with MEGA's backstop of the termination obligations under PPA and implementation agreement, enabled this project to go forward. A more complicated example, which involves all three agencies or arms of the World Bank Group, was the Nachtigal project, a hydro project, again renewable, where each institution of the bank basically provided their products to enable this landmark project to go forward. So MEGA, again, providing de-risking solutions against termination to the sponsors. But here we also had IFC leading the DFI tranche, lending tranche. And importantly, the World Bank, just like the AFDB, has a guarantee facility or guarantee solution, both in support of lenders, commercial lenders, but also to provide liquidity, important for to give comfort to the project, such that if there are any delays in ongoing PPA payments, the liquidity support can come in for a period of time. And this is similar to what we're seeing in terms of different evolutions of these kind of credit enhancements that are necessary to enable these projects to go forward. It's also been, liquidity is also interesting in order to overall credit enhanced projects, as we've seen in the case of Egypt, where there is a huge solar park initiative. And in this case, these operating IPPs that MEGA initially supported, but a group of 6 IPPs actually, as a package, were refinanced with a MEGA cover alongside an EBRD liquidity facility that allowed institutional investors to come in and support this market. So this is another application of a liquidity that can then go and support and bring in new sources of revenues and investments, because ultimately we're trying to attract private sector. These are things that, or these are projects that need private sector investment to come in, and the typical forms or the more conventional forms of private sector are insufficient. So looking to tap into new forms of private sector investors are very important as well. Going towards the more distributed energy, and I'm just going to touch on a few. We have supported now, as I said, we've seen this trend to more, CNI, distributed energy type projects. This is a case where we supported the solarization of telecom towers that were essentially being powered by diesel and HFO solutions. So this increased that kind of, increased the renewable or the energy transition aspects of these projects. The other type of project that we have supported recently in Nigeria actually is actually more of a energy solutions. So there's now an ability to trade and wheel over the grid in Nigeria to essentially then source renewable energy solutions and wheel them to commercial and industrial customers, as we see in this case. And we actually supported the trading platform here. Finally, we're also seeing in the distributed renewable mini grids and metro grids. And we've supported our first metro grid in DRC, where with our de-risking solutions, we're able to enable investment to come in through a holding company and then invest into a number of different communities that could then benefit. This is a different risk profile. So I think it would also be interesting, in addition to MIGA's political risk insurance, to explore what kind of liquidity instruments that these type of sponsors really look for in order to expand this, because distributed renewable energy is going to be needed in order to achieve and close the energy access gap. Finally, I just wanted to say a word on World Bank Guarantee Platform that we are going to be launching in on July 1st, 2024. A number of the examples that I showcased showed not just MIGA guarantees, but also the World Bank Group guarantees, both in terms of liquidity support and direct guarantees to debt providers. Now, as of July 1st, there is an initiative to bring all World Bank Group guarantees under one single platform, so that we can then provide a simplified and more streamlined and comprehensive product offering, not just to our private sector clients, but also our public sector clients. And really the aim is to see how we can not just utilize our individual guarantees, but how can we use them in a complementary manner that basically enhances the ability of private sector to come in and support these projects, and to partner with other providers of guarantees and credit enhancement to basically offer a wider selection and more complementary type solution to enable these investments and enable energy access. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nkem. And while we put up the next presentation, please. Can you go ask them to? I'd also just like to reinforce a few of the messages that Nkem provided for us. The first is the importance of guarantees generally, that there is a much bigger focus now on using guarantees as a solution for helping, let me just get this, there we go, for helping to bring new sources of capital to financing clean energy. And this is really what we're all working together on. Thank you for providing very specific examples to show how these de-risking tools work in practice and what it takes to really bring them about in any particular situation. And thank you also for highlighting the importance of liquidity as a de-risking tool. Some guarantees provide a guarantee against default, and that, of course, is critical to many of these projects when the energy off-taker is not as creditworthy as needed by the investment providers of capital. But also the liquidity ensures that that default does not happen immediately, that there is a way and a mechanism to understand that some of these payments are really about cash flow and not so much about the desire, of course, and the need to repay the electricity costs. So I'd now like to present to you RELP and iTrust, which is a new guarantee mechanism that Wale mentioned, and take you through some of the specifics. And we are, of course, working with the development partners like Africa Development Bank, MIGA, and others to make this happen. We're trying to provide a platform approach that will accelerate the availability of these kinds of de-risking tools. So, of course, the problem that we're all here to talk about trying to solve is that of the credit worthiness of the off-taker primarily, and the country risks, which can also keep private capital from coming into some of these markets. And this creates, these risks create higher financing costs and less availability of capital. And therefore, RELP and iTrust provide a solution to help solve for these challenges. First, RELP is providing advice to governments on how to structure bankable contracts in renewable energy procurement, and iTrust is providing a de-risking mechanism. I won't go through all of the risks, which are many in these projects, but again, some of them can be mitigated by the design and the contractual elements put in place between the off-taker and the providers of power, the independent power producers, IPPs, and some are actually needed to then guarantee that those obligations that have been undertaken by contract are actually going to take place, and that there is a guarantee mechanism to ensure that those obligations that are undertaken by the off-taker and the governments can be honored. We have a strong theory of change for the impact that this creates. We all see it every day in the climate change that is happening in the world, and the need to mitigate that by providing more renewable energy sources in our energy matrices, and to be able to avoid the higher cost of the fuels, the fossil fuels, and while I mentioned also the tax consequences and higher costs of products. So there are very many direct and indirect benefits to greater renewable energy generation, which includes new jobs, higher technology, and the ability to fuel the growth of industry. So our mission is really to support this acceleration of energy transition, and to do that both with advice and de-risking tools. So who is RELP? RELP is a nonprofit agency. It's funded by donors, philanthropy donors, which allows it to offer its advice for no charge to governments. It works together with development partners to provide this specific expertise. It is founded by prior Department of Energy officials in Argentina, so it is inspired by the experience of having adopted a program like this in another emerging market in a very difficult situation. And it is really working on replicating that and scaling that to new countries around the world. This is the executive team. There's a very strong board of advisors as well, which include a number of climate executives and luminaries. The donors, as you see here, are mostly foundations based in the US, the Packard Foundation, the Ballmer Foundation, and some very important partnerships that we have developed with Clifford Chance in particular, a law firm that offers services pro bono to RELP to support that bankable contract design, and the Nature Conservancy, where we are speaking with them about enhancing the environment, social, and governance aspects of energy procurement, as well as in the fund, and utilizing their expertise in conservation, climate, and community. So the impact that was achieved in Argentina with the renewable energy auction program, which RELP is replicating, are very real and easy to see. It attracted, between both the bankability of the contracts and the de-risking tools, almost 8 gigawatts to date of electricity generated from renewable energy, where you can see on the right-hand side, renewable energy was almost 0% of the energy matrix at that time. Of course, Argentina has a lot of oil and gas as well. But by the end of the program is now generating an average of 17% in the energy matrix, and at peak 30%. So it was a very sizable contribution to the energy transition, and it has attracted 8 gigawatts of electricity, but also up to date $10 billion of investment in this new clean energy sector. It includes, by the way, both the provision of clean energy to the grid, as well as complementary commercial and industrial applications as extensions of these plants. Here you can see that it attracted a number of international investors as well as domestic investors, and that the plants were actually designed to be able to benefit all parts of the country. They were put in all of the provinces of the country, which helped with the adoption of these new energy sources. So the government, of course, in these programs has to make its commitment. That's the most important part of this engagement together. But with that political will and commitment to the bankability structures and the de-risking tools, great savings can be realized. First in the cost of capital to be able to build the new generation, and we're also talking about capacity and battery storage, which is important for the renewable energy sector, but to be able to bring in longer financing, cheaper financing, and translate that into cheaper energy prices for consumers and corporates, and that, again, will boost economic development. Argentina has now become one of the largest markets for renewable energy in the world, and this is also something that other countries which really strongly adopt these kinds of programs to scale the procurement of renewable energy can benefit from. So at RELP, there is a process of engagement with governments, first to do an assessment of the risks and the markets, discover the opportunities, work and build capacity and technical assistance in the countries to be able to run renewable energy programs, and to then offer these kinds of procurement programs largely through auctions, which help also to bring a lot of investment quickly into the country, and to be able to source the expertise that exists in the world to put in place renewable energy and battery storage. So again, the process is the engagement with governments, the risk assessments and allocation of risks, bankable contracts, looking at the procurement processes, and being able then to de-risk to bring in cheaper and longer-term financing for these projects. RELP is active in many countries around the world. We are partnered very closely with development organizations. Here in Africa, we have been working together with the IMF on the program that's being implemented in Senegal in particular for their renewable energy goals. And also, here in Kenya, there's another active program. These are some of the case studies where the work has already been completed from Jamaica, Barbados, which is looking at auctions for battery storage, and Pakistan, which has a need to also transition and replace some of their higher cost and dirtier fuel sources. So there, obviously, we are building a network of partners where there's a digital platform that supports the countries in their implementation and these risk mitigation tools, which we'll just now talk about. So iTrust is a blended finance platform to reduce the risks and attract the private capital. It is being done in partnership with Catalytic Capital, and so people and organizations, including philanthropy, that are willing to not have as high a return in order for the ability to open the markets. And so iTrust is really a market opening tool to allow for power producers to come and invest, and for their financial partners to be able to extend the cheapest sources of financing. The idea is that when you put de-risking tools in place, you lower the cost of electricity by having a kind of risk substitution, if you will, for the guarantee that's being provided. iTrust is made up of two parts. The first is this liquidity facility, which is essentially this revolving energy payment guarantee, which stands behind the off-taker's commitment to make timely monthly payments to the power producers in a take-or-pay type arrangement, and that will pay the producers for the electricity delivered and stand to then collect if there are any delays in the government behind the scenes. The second part is a termination type guarantee. This would not be provided directly by iTrust, but would be arranged and be provided by the likes of MEGA or other providers of those types of programs. Or AFDB, of course, has a guarantee program as well. What are we trying to innovate here? It's really that we're trying to put this in place up front across many countries so that it can be made available during the procurement process, and those prices, those decreases of prices and benefits can be built into the bids, and that the fund itself is being set up in Luxembourg, so outside of the host country, which also allows for a streamlined ability to scale the fund and attract more capital as these programs grow. The funding, of course, does come, so here just first, this is just a quick schematic of how iTrust pays, if there is a delay, pays the IPP, which is the independent power producer, and collects back from the designated off-taker, supported by the government, and that allows for the equity and debt providers of the projects to benefit from that higher credit enhancement. This is a quick schematic of how the early termination payment guarantee works. This is very similar to some of the slides that Nkem used on the MEGA examples, and is also an integral part, but not it can also be an optional part. Not all power producers feel they need to have this extra guarantee in place, but it's available, it would be available as part of these procurement processes if desired. So now I'm going to hand over to my colleague Jean-Marie Mas, who has set up funds in Luxembourg before. We're working together to put in place the fund manager and the service providers that are needed to create a very robust vehicle to support these guarantee programs.
Thank you, Liz. So actually, I'm based in Luxembourg, but I work for 27 years at IFC. And last year, I was visiting scholars at the IMF, working on the Resilience and Stability Trust program, which covers Kenya, among other countries. So when it comes to the structure, what we are using is classic funds structure in Luxembourg. What we are trying to do is to be as standard as possible, not do something very complex to implement or to distribute to investors or to provide guarantees to guarantee beneficiaries. So this slide explains how we are going to work. So you have the iTrust fund, which is called an umbrella fund in Luxembourg, and you can have compartments, which are called sub-funds, which are completely self-contained in terms of asset and liquidity. When we provide protection to one particular project, and you can have sub-fund by sub-region or by countries. So we'll have a collection of sub-fund 1, 2, 3, 4. The fund will be a limited partner. We'll have limited partner with a limited partner advisory committee. So my next slide will describe who they are. Then you need an investment fund manager which is licensed. Then a general partner, investment advisory, which is going to instruct all the guarantee which will be awarded by iTrust and recommend them to the investment manager. Then we need a depository bank, an auditor, and central administrator. So this is a classic structure in Luxembourg. It exists in many, it has been done many times, and it's not so expensive to do relative to other jurisdictions. So this explains the stack of funding. So what we would like is to have a first loss, which will be provided by the host country to backstop the guarantee we'll provide under the revolving credit, which will guarantee the payment of the off-taker to the developer, which is the key risk for the developer after he made the investment and produce energy and sells it. Then we have something called catalytical capital, which is subsidized capital that we intend to source from philanthropy and donor. So as Liz explained, RELP is already well financed by philanthropy. We have the connection and they're interested to support the project via catalytical capital. We would have a senior equity tranche. The intention is to finance it with Multilateral Development Bank, DFI, whose mission is to catalyze this kind of project. And then we will have a credit line from banks, probably counter-guaranteed by Multilateral Development Bank or international finance institution. On the right side, you have the amount broken down in percentage point between the different funders. And then we would like to have a donor philanthropy-funded technical assistance program of $20 million to provide capacity building to countries and to launch the entire RELP structure. This slide explains on the right side the early termination payment guarantee that Liz explained. So the idea is that would be an arranger, but will not provide this guarantee. And as Liz explained, some developers want it, some don't. So it's not necessarily to have for a project to be viable. They are typically issued by entities like MIGA, and it's also a classic product. Then we have the project finance and power producer. So here, the concept is that with $100 million of guarantee revolving, we can catalyze 10 times more of investment, so 1 billion of investment. Our intention is to do a 300 million fund. We can mobilize 2 to 3 billion of investment across several projects. And that's where other risk mitigation feature can come in to protect the developers at that level, complementing what iTrust would deliver, which is focused only between the payment of the developer by the off-taker. So via this mechanism, we achieve a very high leverage of each contributor to each compartment. So it's valid for all the funder. So the country, the concessional finance, we call it catalytical capital, MDBs, commercial banks. You have in this slide the multiple we present. Also, what is very important, we benchmark our numbers on what has been done in Argentina. So in Argentina, 6,000 jobs were created via Renovar. So extrapolated the numbers, we estimate we can create $11,000 job via this structure. Of course, we lower the price of electricity per megawatt with this de-risking mechanism because it can allow the developer to borrow cheaper thanks to the de-risking than if there is no de-risking. And that can be reflected in the price per megawatt offered by the developer in the procurement process. And the last point, which we also saw in Argentina, the more renewable energy you produce, the less you need to import fossil fuel in certain countries. And that is also very important. Then, as you know, it's only renewable energy, and renewable energy is a zero carbon energy, typically, for solar and wind. So this slide is summarizing everything in one package. So what is important in this slide is the gray column with country 1, 2, 3, 4. because the de-risking from countries would be specific to a sub-fund for the country or for a project. So that's what we are illustrating in these slides. And you have further data on the right side. So our intention is to pay the catalytical capital a lower return than what would pay to MDBs, which would get an equity return for their support. We see the MDB support as important to give us more footprint in a given country. So that is where we are. In terms of references and extra information, so we have 2 case studies written by Harvard on the experience of Renovar. We have on the website and other information. What we feel is that we can build a global platform, multi-countries, at scale, which is replicable, scalable. We would provide risk mitigation for up to 20 years. So the length is very important because IPP typically have 15-year offtake agreement, so we need to guarantee that. So that is our ambition. That's where we are. In Luxembourg, we're in the process of creating the various legal structure. From there, we will engage with investors to populate the various components of iTrust. So that's the disclaimer. So thank you very much. So now, if you have questions, we are happy to answer.
So thank you very much, Jean-Marie, and you can see that we're very invested in putting in place this fund and working together with our partners to make this a reality and really offer a solution for accelerating clean energy procurement on the continent in Africa. And if there are any questions, we have a couple of minutes. Otherwise, I would very much like to welcome and thank you for your participation, and we're happy to also speak afterwards. Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. I think we have a microphone.
Thank you. Apologies I didn't come quite early, but my question is really around, are there priority countries within Africa for this? So do you have any criteria set to identify countries that will be best suited for this facility or guarantee? And please just clarify if it also works like a PRG, or is this a completely separate? In other words, it's to backstop payment from the utility, right? And to give investors confidence, so you crowd in more capital. But is this, what I'm thinking about is, will it be in competition with the typical PRG instruments that we have? Or is it a similar type instrument, etc.? So 2 things, just to summarize. Do you have priority countries, and what's the criteria for that? And then the second one, is it really acting like the existing PRG that we all know? Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe another question we can take.
Okay.
It now. Yes, there is another.
Thank you very much. My name is Lebon, and my question is in line with technology adoption. And I was really concerned about this. My question is, will iTrust Fund prioritize specific renewable energy technologies, or it will be technology agnostic? Because in the area of renewable energy, we've noticed there are several types that are renewable energy that we can rely on. And then the next one is what are the biggest challenges that renewable energy investment are currently facing, and how does iTrust Fund address them? Thank you.
Yep.
Good day. Hi, I'm Jablani from the city of eThekwini. I just want to find out now in the project, is this guarantees per project, because really it's a way to go. I think one of the critical aspects which fails us in this country to access even the funding is the poor credit rating. So how do we then deal with that? Is it per project? And at what stage do you come, after the negotiation with the potential funders or right from the beginning? Or do you have some limit in respect of this guarantee and in both the amount and the time frame? Thank you.
Thank you very much for those very thoughtful questions and very pertinent to the topic here. So let me try to answer some of them, and Jean-Marie, if you want to add anything. So on the priority countries, we do have a research team that looks at the state of the energy markets in each country and does a bit of a scoring, if you will, on how, what elements are missing in order to really achieve the bankability of those projects. And some of this points to the last question as well about what are those risks and how are they identified and how are they mitigated. So some of those risks can be around government obligations, whether it's around siting, use of land, permitting, et cetera. And so some of this can then be driven into legislative change or guidelines that are provided by the Ministries of Energy that clarify some of those areas that might be unclear for the investors. And so this does surface some countries that may be more ready for this than others, but the most important aspect is that the government is committed to really move forward with the program and to look at the recommendations that are made both on the contractual side as well as on the procurement design side. In terms of, is it like a PRG? So yes, it does seek to achieve the same goal as PRGs, and there are different, let's say, criteria for different instruments, whether it's the PRG from Africa Development Bank or the MEGA PRI or non-honoring product. And essentially, it is trying to take the best of those products and put them into a fund structure so that they can be offered more quickly and be put in place in the beginning of the design and the procurement process so that the prices can reflect and be lowered in order to benefit the country in terms of lower prices. Today, if you have a project that is seeking to invest in renewable energy and is bilaterally negotiating that contract, they first negotiate the contract and then they go seek to find the de-risking tools. And by that sequence, the government does not benefit, or the off-taker does not benefit from, the country does not benefit from the lower cost of the cheaper financing. So this is what we're hoping to do, but we are, of course, working very closely with the development partners that can provide tools like this. They tend to be focused more, the current tools, on the termination guarantees rather than the liquidity guarantees, and also that the multilateral development banks and others don't really want the guarantee to ever be called. So this is essentially providing that cash cushion, if you will, to payment. But you were absolutely right that the one fundamental challenge is the credit rating itself of the off-takers and the arrangement within countries of how to fund the off-takers when they are not 100% self-funded. So sometimes there are, for example, subsidies to lower the price of energy and electricity for people, and those subsidies need to come from the central government. And it's the off-taker itself does not have the cash. It's not collecting the cash directly from consumers in order to fully fund the cost of producing the electricity. So it is trying to put in place a mechanism that allows for a bit of a waiting period, I would say, and avoiding default. At the end of the day, of course, there does have to be payment for the electricity at the cost that it is agreed to be provided, and so that is a more fundamental even a macroeconomic topic to be worked out within the budget analysis of each government. So I think I'll stop there. And, yep.
Yeah, I would like to address the question on technology. So the idea is that we would focus on solar, wind, upgrade of grid system to offload the energy produced and distribute it. So that's for, and then we, in terms of technology, we do an assessment, but we are agnostic. You can imagine in Argentina with 10 billion of induced investment, many technology have been deployed, and we are coming from there. Okay? When it comes, I would like to go back to the rating. For me, the rating, if you do a project in a country, the lender will price its loan at country risk plus risk premium for the project. If you cannot do anything against that at project level in a country. However, with our system, we do a guarantee offshore in a AAA rated country, Luxembourg, and there are not many left who are rated AAA. So like that, we don't have a country credit rating ceiling per se to value the guarantee we provide. The other element is the element of leverage. So I explained it, but I would like to go back very quickly. If you do a 100 megawatt renewable energy plant, we estimate that you need $10 million of revolving guarantee, only 10 million for 100 million investment. And the country would provide only 15% of the 10 million, so $1.5 million. And it's revolving year on year. So that's not, it's a risk mitigation which can be highly beneficial for the country to induce investments. Now let's suppose you don't have anything of that. In most countries, the off-taker have negative net worth or make loss or are not in good shape. So if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who invests in the country to sell energy to the public off-taker who has a weak balance sheet, it's very difficult to price, or you price the risk. But if you mitigate that with the offshore credit guarantee, that's different. And then the offshore guarantee, it's in one of the slides, the developer can assign the payment to the lender. So that's important, because if the lender lower its spread because of the guarantee, you have a huge saving as percentage of borrowing equivalent compared to no risk mitigation. For example, if you save 4%, and in Argentina, I think we saw 6%, if you save 4%, typically the loan are 18 years. So let's suppose average maturity 10 years, you save 4% per annum. On average maturity of 10 years, you save 40% of your borrowing. And that can be reflected in lower bid price for energy or higher return on equity for the developer or both, but you make the project more attractive to attract more developers to build the projects.
So I think we're at time. I want to very much thank our speakers, Wale and Kem, for providing the context of the products that World Bank Group and AFDB are currently making available, and the partnership to work together to be able to scale these products and bring them to more countries. And I want to very much thank the participants here and the very good questions that we received, and really happy to follow up going forward. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Don't be deceived by looks. Looking up is a choice, eh? Of course, collect my number. Yeah. No, my was always plus 225. 05. 75. 75. 75. Yes, yes. What we're doing can be interesting, but also yes. Yeah, because I'm working with colleagues in South Africa. And I'm experienced. You see, I can't say I'm not angry. Exactly. Very soon to meet you guys. Yeah. All right.
First loss and then enable
Right.
other persons, multis.
Yeah, good. No, I'm on your board. So, thank you.
Yes. Let's see, this is yours. Is this your WhatsApp? Oh, yes. I like it. Because then it automatically downloads into your contacts, right? That is it.
Thank you.